Good evening. Welcome to FPL the Onion, Ep21. It's Shlee and Nick, the usual posse here for a bit of a change after some changes to the lineup last week. Nick, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Shlee. I'm very well. Big thank you to you for still doing this, even though you're away. And I know that the tech's already jumping about. My video is already jumping about. My audio will probably jump about as well. But yeah, we're just gonna crack on and see how it goes.
Exactly, yeah. I think we need to try and minimise two topics if we can, which is probably doing everyone's head in. My health and our technology slash internet. So let's try and avoid both of those for now. But we might be able to get through on both accounts tonight. So the season is over, Nick.
Yeah,
How?
if we grow if I was just going to say, Shlee, if we grow the channel to a certain size, that you'll just have people constantly on the comments just asking how you're doing, how you feeling.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, season's over. How does it feel for you? For 3 days into freedom for 6 weeks or so.
Yeah, I really miss it. In fact, today's actually been slightly better just because I've thought about it as much today. I've been pretty busy today. I've been busy the rest of the week, but I noticed as soon as it finished, I did miss it a lot.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's amazing how much time you spend on it and what a kind of gap it leaves when it's gone. And it sounds really sad, but I'm already looking forward to it coming back. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
And
quite sad.
yeah, the room that we're in to communicate. I did call that the name tonight. Something to do with can't wait for next season. It is a bit strange for it to be over, and yeah, definitely got some energy to fill hopefully some content over the summer, which I know a lot of other channels understandably are going to have a bit of a rest, and maybe next season we'll be thinking, right, after 38 weeks of this, we're ready for a break too. But yeah, definitely quite a lot to pour over, I think, and we'll try and do as much as we can over the summer in our
Yeah.
busy
But on
lifestyles as
the
we
on the
can.
technology, kind of in addition to your health, the kind of two topics on the technology side, I think I mentioned it on my kind of game week 38 kind of final decisions before the end of the stream that for the end of the season that I'm actually going to get some super internet. So I'm really hopeful that's in play pretty soon, and that should mean that we never have to mention technology again because it should massively help us.
Well, although the focus will just move to your Windows 98 laptop then.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, maybe who knows? Maybe my birthday's coming up, so maybe I'll buy myself a little present in a streaming machine or something like that.
Nice. Okay, so the format of this week, I mean, the main thing we wanted to get through on this episode was firstly a review of how we did last week, the usual sort of stuff looking back. One day maybe we'll look back and wonder what we did in 2021-22 season in game week 38, so that'll be useful for ourselves and some of the listeners who might it might ring true how they did also. Quick look at top 10k sort of stuff, what they did. A little look at the FPL the Onion League because there was a bit of movement there. Spoiler alert: someone might be buying themselves a curly whirly, and then a few bits we just threw in at the end. There was a few things that caught my eye on Twitter in the last week, so I've just put a few slides together of those, just a discussion point. And then Nick, I know you've done a bit of Excel. Looking forward to prices for next season, some predictions maybe on what squads might look like. So we'll end with that.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so my last week was really good. I had something like I think a 15,000 game week rank, which was amazing. I went from 150k to 105. I think you told me I was 1 point outside the top 100k, which is a little bit disappointing to hear. But up until that point, everything was quite rosy. Obviously, finished the season nowhere near where I wanted to. But Ali was pointing out to me that I've been uber consistent. I think my last three finishes have been 105, 98, and 105k. So maybe there is something in that seems to be my kind of niche at the moment, finishing around that sort of area, which is a bit disappointing. But yeah, transfers paid off really nicely. We did exactly the same moves, you and I, Weghorst and Salah to Kane and Madison. Madison just absolutely brilliant for me the last couple of weeks. Had him on free hit last week. But the real hero for me was Kulusevski, which was the main difference between our teams. I think we were really similar otherwise. I think it was my Kulusevski for your Trent perhaps, and so that got me over 100 points.
Yeah, I had a look at our teams as well and saw how similar they were, and just the big difference in the score. Yeah, Kulusevski, that was massive, wasn't it? And
I mean, he could have had a hat trick easily, and Son could have had another. I haven't
yeah,
seen the highlights of all the games, but Plummy, he was like clean through and then decided to take a bizarre sort of route out wide rather than shooting with an open goal. Tried to dribble it a bit closer to the goal, so a bit of a strange one.
he's been I actually watched the Liverpool and City games, kind of flicking between them. I did that classic thing of managing to miss all the goals, I think, live. But I watched the final day with a couple of Spurs fans, my father-in-law and my brother-in-law, and my brother-in-law was at pains to tell me how much better Kulusevski's been than Diaz since Diaz came into the league, and
Right.
how everyone's just been ranting and raving about Luis Diaz, and yet actually Kulusevski's the one. So I mean, you'll see later. I think he probably is quite a good option for next season, because I think he's nailed down that spot, and as long as Conte stays at Spurs, and I expect them to keep a lot of their players. I don't think Kane's going to leave. Kulusevski could be a great option next season.
Is he there? I thought he was on loan, or is that a permanent deal?
I think they had the option to make it permanent. I think they will make it permanent. I
Okay,
think
right.
I'd be surprised if he's not there next season.
Yeah, sure. I mean, what was he coming at 6 million? Is he like 6.5 now? So a bit of a price hike. I think
Well,
Andy
interestingly,
was.
I mean, you'll see later, because he's in my kind of list of people that I've looked at their prices. He finished the season on 6.3.
Only went up by point
So,
0.3.
so he only
Wow.
went up by 0.3, but yeah, he's had a brilliant end of the season. Some really interesting stuff actually in that. I'm looking forward to looking through that. But yeah, he's if he comes in at 6.5 next season, because they're usually quite conservative, aren't they, with their price rises? That if he starts at 6, it goes up to 6.3. I think I guess they could make him 7 or 7.5 given his performance. I think the biggest jump we've ever seen was in recent memory anyway, was Bruno, wasn't it? Because he came into the league at like, I think he was 7 or something, or 8 when he came into the league, and he in January, and he absolutely destroyed it. And then I think the next season he started at maybe 10 or something,
Wow.
10 or
Okay.
11, but he was
Right.
still amazing value even at that, I think, wasn't he?
Yeah, I've not got my finger on the pulse of all sort of price changes between seasons. So yeah, if that's your understanding, fair enough. It's something
But
like
it's a very
14.
it's a very
14.
difficult thing though, isn't it? Because and this is something that I was going to ask you about actually, is aren't there sites now where you can actually download your entire season and then you can save it somewhere, so you can actually go back and look through it? Because it's so difficult to find old data in the game, because obviously every time it resets, the season just compressed down into just what one player got in his, you can't see what they got in individual games and all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah, I downloaded your season today. I can.
stalker.
Yeah, just you. Yeah, not everyone around me that I know. Um, yeah, your ID of 824. I was using that today. It's a bit weird that you can just do that for any player, but yeah, you can drool over it as much as you like with other players as well. And I mean that was just the live FPL one. Um, yeah, there's a /save URL he's got, and then you have to like wait a day for it to download, and then you get an Excel of I can't remember what sort of stuff is in there. I'm not sure if pricing's in there, but there's another site where you could work out what Bruno's starting price was. I think the last 3 or 4 seasons it goes back to. It's not in the most friendly format, but
Oh, nice.
certainly I'd like to do a bit of
Yeah.
data stuff on some of that to work out some like who had the best run over the 5 game week period of this season or something. That's something when I get some time I'd like to do.
Yeah.
Um,
No, you had an amazing game, Richley. And how do you? I mean, I'm guessing we'll probably do a pod at some point in the next few weeks where we try and look back at our seasons in depth, kind of try and think of the things that went right, went wrong, etc. But just how do you feel about the season now, looking back on it?
Son hurt me massively. That last third, I think, will go down as a massive, how could I have ignored him for that long? I mean, at the time, it was tricky because I had Kane, Kulusevski, and Doherty. And so, there's a sacrifice there. But I think as soon as hindsight, Doherty was injured, I should have ripped up everything to get Son. Um, I think I was definitely on the end of some unlucky 50-50s, like going Ronaldo over Fernandez in that, was it Game Week 22 period-ish, when he, infamously when Az on Blackbot got him and he didn't really want him, and I don't know, he didn't captain him, but he got 25 points or whatever.
Yeah.
And the other thing that sticks in my mind, just off the cuff quickly, was wildcard timing. I think I pressed the button more because you did, and it really worked out for you, and we were just starting this, and it was quite a feel-good thing around that. And although I wasn't having a great time with it, I think I wasted that and didn't play my chips well around everything to do with the wild card, i.e., bench boost should be near the wild card. I think that was wasted. I think the other chips I did okay with, but I think those are the biggies.
Yeah.
How about you? In a nutshell, what are your thoughts on? Should we do your team in a moment and discuss that?
Yeah, let's look at that.
Okay. I'll just finish with a few thoughts I've noted down
Yeah,
here.
cool.
We obviously both had Coutinho come in with a return and an auto sub, which was kind of jammy. Was yours for Alonso as well?
Yeah, I did say though, didn't I, on my stream that I don't mind having Coutinho first bench as score against City, just because he is still Coutinho, he's still a quality player, and actually his goal was really nice, wasn't it, when they had City under the cosh big time, and it looked like they were letting the league slip away. But I've had quite a lot of. It feels like I've had some really massive bench jam at times this season, but Coutinho coming in and getting a return and not just getting 2 points against City, which is probably what you would have expected. Felt it was pretty good, wasn't it, on the last day?
Yeah, I mean, he was a good popular sell as well. So yeah, that worked out really nicely. I mean, for me, the bench order didn't matter. I had no bench, which again was maybe a bit of a stroke of luck, but you had it the right order because you're Dewsbury Hall, right? So that would have been a tempter, I think. He got a recent return, you might have put him ahead of Coutinho, and that would have hurt.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, he may have got a return that I didn't spot, but as in, if you're talking about when he got like a couple of goals, I think that was like 6, 7, 8 game weeks ago.
Yeah. No, as in if he got one recently with Coutinho's poor form, you
Oh, I
might have been
see.
tempted
Yeah.
because the fixture was obviously much better. But
Yeah, true. True.
And the only other thing I wanted to mention was just my kind of U-turn on my thoughts compared to when I streamed last Wednesday. I think I was just in my default, maybe actually this is a lesson maybe for this season, an overall kind of thing. I think I was in my default very defensive, low risk kind of mode. Don't take a hit unless it's necessary. Because I was just thinking, if Salah's out, Salah to someone, if not Coutinho to someone. I never really considered a -4, and I said as much on the stream. But then as the days went by, people talking about, Kane, surely he's worth a -4, especially if it's for Weghorst. Weghorst looked like he was going to get benched. So it kind of became well, we can get Kane for probably a 2-point hit only because Weghorst is probably going to get 0 or 1, and that's how it turned out. So I kind of feel a bit bad that if people were listening to that last Wednesday, they were thinking, oh, well, I'll go quite conservative as well. No hits needed. But I think a lot of people in the top 10K, and content creators and so on, they would have done -4. I think our moves were pretty popular. So so that really evolved over the days after that.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I've often, if I do listen back to, even just before deadline, if I listen back to our earlier pod from earlier in the week, I think we might next season want to do maybe a short pod. I know you get up super early in the morning, but maybe a short pod kind of early on the morning of the deadline or something like that. Because even just to talk to each other about these things, because when you get extra information and extra, and you get late news, your plans can change so much from even just 2 days before, can't they? So I think as you get closer to the deadline, because I was trying to listen out for early Salah news, and Andy, Let's Talk FPL, he's obviously got some, because he's big now, because he's such a nice guy as well. I think he has got a couple of people who are obviously giving quite reliable information on teams, and you're sort of wondering, where he's meeting these people from. It might even be somebody like Rockstar, who's thinking, instead of Rockstar doing it himself, he's thinking, I'll just bless you, I'll give the info to Andy, and then he can kind of release it. Because I guess with people like Rockstar, it gets to the point where if they are more in the public eye, there's a chance, I guess, of them getting kind of outed or discovered. So maybe Rockstar's feeding it to Andy, but that information, I don't know whether it's from training sessions in the week running up to the game, but they seem to have that information quite early on, on the match day. So, maybe the team sheets are printed out. I don't know how it works, but yeah, that Liverpool team news, I was waiting for that on the day. And when Andy said Salah's bench, that made up my mind that I was going to make those transfers. Because if you thought Salah was going to start, and it's quite interesting if you look at the guy who ultimately won it, he actually wildcarded in 34 and went without Salah for the rest of the season. And you think every week I've been talking about how scared I am of people like Salah going mad and me not having him. If I'd got rid of Salah in game week 35 and brought in De Bruyne, I almost certainly would have finished top 1K. So,
Yep.
yeah, it was nice to go without Salah on the last day and not be afraid of him destroying us.
I wonder if Salah, I don't want to say notoriously finished the season slowly, but like there was quite a lot made of Mane last season finishing really strongly, and therefore I'm wondering if Mane took points off Salah. I can't really remember what happened at the end of last season, except that Mane went big on that last week. Because I remember Markov, Blackbox got him in and captained him. That was quite a big swing for him.
Yeah.
So people going on little runs like that. Maybe everyone's saying he was tired after African Cup of Nations and stuff. It's obviously really ballsy to have to do that and get rid of such a big hitter. But Son on fire, De Bruyne maybe with really good fixtures and doubles, and maybe he's been underperforming the season. Again, in hindsight, maybe it wasn't too crazy to do it.
I don't know though, because you think the timing, I think, of 35 was City had just lost to Madrid in the Champions League and they'd capitulated, and De Bruyne was obviously taken off early in that game. There was, I think, talk of him potentially having an injury, although I think Pep came out and said it was tactical, but nobody really knew in game week 35 how City were going to respond to that.
True.
To going out.
Salah had just had a rest as well. I mean, I remember it. That's why we were so scared of it.
Yeah, Salah had that rest, and then obviously the Newcastle game. You just thought there's no way that he's not going to play that Newcastle game. I captained him in that game, and obviously, I was trying to talk myself into. I went and watched the game actually with a Liverpool fan. And I was like, "Go on, tell me he's not going to play. He's not going to come on. Surely if they're 3-0 up, there's no point bringing him on." He said, "Well, he'll bring him on so that he can take off Mane, or so he can take off, so he can rest another player." And I was like, "Yeah, that makes sense." So that was pretty devastating. And that game week 35 was when Son got, I think, a 19-pointer, and a lot of people captained him. And because that's the other thing. The winner, this is mad. The winner had De Bruyne and had Son. He had captained De Bruyne in 35, and Son was his vice. So because De Bruyne didn't play in 35,
wow.
He got Son as his captain. So these are the things, like you look at that, there's the person who ultimately won it. I mean, I probably shouldn't say this because it sounds incredibly self-serving, but going into game week 35, I was 100 places ahead of the guy who won it.
Wow.
He was I think he was like 707 or 702 or something like that. And I was like 608.
And what was De Bruyne's fixture in 35 when he was benched? Well, so was he benched or just dropped totally?
I think I can't remember, but he didn't play a minute.
Wow.
I can't remember. I could have a look now. I've got FPL open here. Let's have a quick look.
And what did Son do in 35?
Son got.
Did he get a brace or something?
He played Leicester and he got 2 goals and an assist and 3 bonus for 19 points.
So did he just completely roll the dice at that point and thought, I'm, what was he, like 1,000th in the world, and thought, I don't really have any science here to go against Salah. I'm just going to go for it. De Bruyne's a big hitter. Okay, it's a risk losing Salah, but it's fascinating that I'd love to know, was it actually based on any science? Did he look at some previous season stuff, or
I don't know. In fact, wasn't the, I think, because again, I think I'm misremembering, wasn't the City, because it was City Leeds that weekend. And again, Leeds away, it looks like a fantastic fixture for City. And so people think you're right, De Bruyne, and looking at it on a wild card. But was that before? I think that was before the Madrid game, wasn't it? So I think he was rested, fully rested before the Madrid game. And then he had that disappointing game. And that was it. It was that people didn't know how they were going to react before the Newcastle game, which was the first game of the double game week in 36.
Okay,
and they beat Newcastle 5-0, and De Bruyne only got an assist in that game. But then obviously the second half of game week 36 was while we were streaming, and De Bruyne got 4 against Wolves.
Yeah, mad.
So the winner had obviously De Bruyne to Son, vice captain, he captained De Bruyne in 35. He got Son as his vice captain. He got those points. Then in 36, he captained De Bruyne and got his 60-point return as captain. And I think he got like a 200-point bench boost that week.
Yeah.
And then in 37, he had the free hit that I wish I'd had, which was, I think he did have Ings, but he had Richarlison and captain Richarlison. He didn't have Kane.
Maddison
and
and Vardy.
He had Maddison and Vardy. So I think he got 100 and something point free hit. But basically from game week 35, having the Son captain, game week 36, having De Bruyne captain and getting 200 points, and then having a massive free hit as well. He was in first place going into the final weekend.
Yeah.
So he went from 700th place to first place in 3 game weeks.
Mm-hmm. And without, spoiler alert slightly, but I think it sounds like you're looking at those moves, and maybe apart from the De Bruyne captain to Son auto vice captain, thinking I could have done those, and that wasn't too insane to have gone that way from him.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's so it's so hindsight, right? And obviously, when I was 600th, there were 600 players who, if they also had Son for 35 captain, had De Bruyne 36 captain, had the perfect free hit in 37, or the Maddison Vardy Richarlison free hit in 37, they all would have finished above me. But it's just the fact that I think the only thing that I probably probably is very hindsighty, but if I had moved Salah before that, he'd had his rest, but if I was looking at it and thinking, right, Salah looks tired, like Salah is tired. Salah's played loads of football. They're in all these competitions. There's still the potential for rest in other games. City are in the driving seat in the league, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If I had just thought, right, Salah to De Bruyne ahead of Leeds, even, yes, De Bruyne would have been rested, or in fact, I think because I didn't have Son in 35, I don't think I had Son because I'd taken Son out to get Havertz and Mount for Chelsea's double. So even if I'd just done Salah to Son in 35 and captain Son, that would have covered that off. But then it would have required me in 36 to be like, right, I need De Bruyne. So it's all massive hindsight, but it's I don't think those moves are, they're not ridiculous to make, and obviously there's so much luck and so much variance and everything else that would have got me to that point at 35 anyway. I'm not saying that, as I think I messaged you earlier saying, if I had won FPL this season, I would have thought that I was definitely living in a simulation. Can you imagine that? I mean, imagine that guy who he was 700th and then he's won FPL. Like that must feel so unbelievably surreal.
But what bit of it? Winning it or the 700th bit? Because 700th, you've got not one hand on it, but you've got a chance. If you roll the dice and it comes off, you could do it. I think from 1,000th, you could do it.
Yeah, but I think true, but I think that those 5 game weeks must have felt, or those 4 games must have felt so unbelievably surreal. Like after a 200-point bench boost to then be like, oh my, Richarlison captain's coming in. I've got Maddison, I've got Vardy. Like this is absolutely ridiculous. Because I think going into that free hit, he was 10th. So that 200-point bench boost took him from, I think, like 300th down to 10th or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's pretty mad. I mean, there's a guy in Andy's Slack channel who I think finished 300th, and you look at his, and he was like, he didn't have De Bruyne in 36, and I think he had like one player missing from his free hit in 37, and he didn't actually have a great score on the final day, but he came 300th. So there's little changes that happen in somebody's season that can make such a massive difference.
I think the thing that I would have been most put off by had I been the guy that won, sorry, I can't remember his name, the American guy though, I think, isn't it, the first American to have won FPL, was the fact that massive swing happened not on the last game week. Had it happened on the last game week, you almost don't have time to process it. But because it happened 2 weeks before, he's gone from 700th, and okay, I'm saying you've got one hand on it, and obviously I'm very much joking, but he's probably thinking, well, okay, I've got a chance, but I'm very unlikely, so I'm just going to play my normal game. But as soon as you get a 200-point bench boost and that swing, you suddenly become in the spotlights big time. You're like, blimey, this is real, and now I've got to not bottle this. And yet he then goes and does another stormer on the free hit, and then last week of the season, not massively high scoring, solidifies it. But I think had it happened on the last week, he would have been even more surreal. But I think because it
No, I
happened a bit
agree. I mean,
before.
like, if you jump from like 60th to first on the last game week, but I think, don't you think, Shlee, when you say you had one hand on it, I know you're joking, but when I was 600th going into game week 35, we didn't think, oh, I could win this if I just make the right moves. Like, you feel like the people who are going to win it are the people who are in the top 50 or the top 100 or whatever.
I think had you finished in the top 100 before, I think maybe we would have had that conversation. I don't remember consciously massively thinking about it, but I do remember a little bit thinking I don't want to discuss this too much because I don't want to mess it up.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, if I'm ever in that position again, you need to be more, forthcoming, I think. But, like this is the thing. I'm not going to think, oh, what might have been, and obviously De Bruyne getting 4 goals, having previously just got an assist in the first game in game week 36. And obviously we were sitting, and it was a bit of a sickener. We were kind of recording at the time when he was scoring those goals, and we knew that it was a big swing. Like that was basically the end of me trying to finish in the top 1K. But yeah, I mean, if you have that, and I think the lesson from the end of the season, especially Son and De Bruyne, and then even Richarlison, is even if you have to take -4s, -8s, if you think there's that player who is the captain of the week, even if he's not necessarily going to be the most popular captain, if you think he's the captain, you've got to get him in.
Yeah. Well, and I think
Because
that rounds off the story slightly when I was talking about me being quite risk averse, that this season is totally different and last season was totally different because of COVID and all the doubles. I think if we
yeah,
have a similar season to normal in inverted commas, I think maybe my normal playing style and others where, hits are bad, you really should try and plan more. That will maybe come back to the fray. But if there's more postponements and more messing about
maybe,
with
yeah.
fixtures, then, your -12 crazy plan to take -12 on a whatever it was, game week 29 that paid off handsomely, or was it 16?
-16,
Yeah,
-16.
was, might be the thing to do. And I didn't do that enough. And, that builds value and everything else.
Yeah, interestingly though, because I look, obviously I was playing a very different way this season, and it's so difficult to know whether that is what works for you or what doesn't. But I think I'd taken 1 hit in the first 20 game weeks,
Yeah, but
which
there's
as
no blanks or doubles for them though. So it
no,
was
no, no, no.
normal.
But I was doing better. Like I was kind of 600th or something around there from only taking 1 hit. So it wasn't like I was playing, super
Okay.
aggressively and holding my rank. It was almost like my rank started to slip when I started taking those hits.
Okay.
But I almost needed to take those hits because I'd like wildcarded early or whatever else. So, and as I say, like the winner wildcarded in 34. So he was obviously in a brilliant position and he had his wildcard still to play. So it's really interesting. But yeah, I think you're right. I think because, you think about there's so much that could change. If Salah had got even a goal in one of those games where he didn't have Salah, suddenly he's dropped 300 places or 400 places or 5, as in like those sorts of things. When you haven't got Salah and everyone else is captaining him, it's massive. But Trent was the other one, because I brought Trent back in 36 for that double. He got 3 2s. I think he got 2 in every game towards the end of the season.
Yep.
If I'd gone Matip instead,
Yeah.
you look
What
at
a swing
these,
there.
things. So
Anyway, we should probably move on. We've gone deep and dark into season review when we're still talking about my game week. Let's move on to your slide, and then we can come back to this. But I think this. Sorry for the listeners that are thinking, just want to hear about your week and then move on, and not in the right order. This is the sort of thing we're going to try and cover in the summer, because I think it's really interesting, the sort of stuff we did and didn't do and why, and trying to learn some stuff from it. And it's funny when I listen to Black Box sometimes, and I hope they do this, but I think their title suggests they want to do this sort of stuff, but I think they get so sidetracked with other things, understandably, in the week to week stuff, that it would be really good to hear Az and Mark have similar discussions about their seasons, particularly Mark, who I think had a real stinker of 38 as well. I think he's got probably some very interesting stuff in his brain about how he could do different next season.
yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? Because I know Az is playing in Game Week 39. I was listening to Planet FPL's pod with one of my favourites from Twitter, Benny Blanco, today about Game Week 39, and it's being held a few miles away from where I grew up, which is pretty funny. In fact, in hindsight, I wish I'd messaged Benny Blanco, because I've had a bit of interaction with him on Twitter. He's a really funny bloke, but I wish I'd messaged, because I didn't realise they were struggling to get players for the North team, but
Right.
I actually would have loved to have gone and played that game. It's on my birthday, but So Benny, if you're watching, then and you have a late dropout, give me a shout. I'll dust my boots off. But yeah, as in, as is. It's funny because a lot of those content creators, even though it'd be great, maybe Black Box will do a kind of season wash up, but I haven't seen anything about it yet. I guess they just takes it out of them so much, and obviously Mark's had issues again this season that I think they just take a break. But when it's fresh in the mind, it would, as you say, they're often talking about lessons they've learned and everything else. It would be good to kind of hear, some of those from them about their seasons. I think I'm sure they will do it at some point.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. I think Andy's already done his. I think it was a 30-minute, but I haven't listened to it. Have you?
I think I started listening to it, but I haven't got through it yet. I listened to his reaction stream, like his. I don't think it was a knee-jerk stream, but his kind of end of the season stream.
Yeah,
he's funny, Andy, because I think because he's been doing it so long, I think he'd messaged in the Slack saying like he wasn't going to, and I think he'd said he wasn't going to be doing a, it was his last knee-jerk stream and stuff. But I think he's got like muscle memory of when he's going to do his videos, and he almost, I think it's almost like a compulsion for him because he did it straight after the end of those games, didn't he? I guess he did the watch along as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did the deadline one watch along. That's what I was saying. He's really he's a busy man on that week and got quite a lot of new stuff coming out. And I don't know if you saw the picture of him with his suit from the waist up and then his shorts from the waist down. He was like in that for some of the day. It was quite funny.
He's wicked, Andy. He's such a lovely bloke. I'm so chuffed that he's done well. But the other nice thing is, imagine if you knew that every single time you streamed, you made a decent chunk of cash, because that's basically what he's. Every time he streams, if he gets a few thousand views, he's making.
Exactly.
He's getting some decent money
3 times in a day. But yeah, I'd listened to about 3/4 of that, and it was interesting because it wasn't too much about what's happening next week. It was a lot of season review bits and little bits of tidbits for next season, and loads of AOB stuff about England squads and Maddison, and it's been brilliant. Why is he not getting in the team, etc. It was a nice feel good feel, and he just pipped into got into the top 10k, didn't he? Pipped his way in, so that was quite nice.
Yeah, I love Andy. He's great. So anyway,
top 10k.
My game week, so it was nice to finish on a big green. I think I was 5,000th before, so it was nice to kind of bring it down. I was still holding some hopes that by some miracle I'd get into the top 1k, but I knew it wasn't really going to happen. It was quite nice actually. I quite enjoyed I did that like very late stream on the Saturday night, and it was nice just running through the fixtures and thinking, right, what do I think is going to happen in these fixtures? And I think that actually helped me quite a lot with the decisions. I mean, a lot of it's quite obvious, but really in this game, it feels like we're picking like who are the best players and the best teams and like to get them in our team. But actually, we're trying to predict what's going to happen in games, aren't we? So from week to week, so that was quite helpful. And actually, I listened to it back after 38, just because there wasn't really much else to listen to, and I wanted to see how I'd done on my predictions. And I don't think I got too much wrong. I think I said that Chelsea were going to smash Watford. In the end, they didn't. But I did say there were issues with how much they were going to change the team. So maybe we should do more of that next season. Is actually look ahead to the fixtures and try and predict what we think is going to happen, and then maybe pick out that that differential captain for the week as well. So I was listening to Planet FPL's stream today, and James was saying how Son should have had like another 2 or 3 goals in that game, so that would have been massive. I'm sure he was massively captain, but it was nice when he started scoring, because I think they were 3-0 up before he did anything.
I think so. He got the last 2, didn't he?
Yeah. So that was quite painful when they were scoring, and I was obviously watching it with my Spurs family, and so when he started scoring, that was nice. But yeah, Robertson getting a goal was really nice. Coutinho, obviously, when he scored, I was like, yes, that's great, because Alonso not being in the squad at all was a bit of a surprise. I don't think he's not going to be there next season, is he? You wouldn't have thought.
Correct.
They're going to have to go out and buy another left back, because I don't think Saul Nunez is going to work out very well for them. I don't think it could have gone that much better. It was a nice end to the season, and I'm just excited for the next one now. And I think we've talked a lot about how the rest of the season went, or how the last kind of 4 or 5 game weeks have gone, so we could probably move on.
Well, I can't remember if we did the sort of quick highlights of your season and where you think things went really well or wrong. I think I summarised it into like 3 bits for me. What about yourself?
I'm sure we can probably do this in more depth, but the things that really stand out for me are Gallagher coming off the bench for Mbumo against City, and I think he'd got 2 goals or he got a goal and an assist. That was massive for me. Reece James getting his 2 goals against Newcastle, I think was it, and he got his like 21-point return.
In
And I
like
think I'd
what,
just
give me
brought him in
27
that
or
week.
ish. Yeah, but on his return basically, and then he went blanking for another 5 game weeks.
Well, I think he did okay for the next couple of weeks after that. But I mean, yeah, when you look back at Reece James' season, I mean, we can talk about him in terms of players for next season, but he's so unbelievably inconsistent from a fantasy perspective. And yet it felt like even in those weeks where he wasn't scoring that he should have been. Like I remember in the Man United game, him like hitting the post with a lovely curler on his left foot, and he's got some monster scores in him. But you know, if he's going to be doing this to people are going to start calling him a troll, aren't they? So
Yeah, so erratic.
But then what else? I mean, obviously I've mentioned it about 17 times, but Salah missing that penalty against Leicester when everyone else had sold him the week before, whereas I'd played my free hit the week before, so I'd kept him. If Salah had gone big in that Leicester game, because I think going into that game I was like 500th, 600th, something like that. I think that could have propelled me into the top, 200, top 100 if he'd gone massive in that game. So when he missed that penalty, that was absolutely devastating. And I never really, because I was kind of on the up, even up to that point. And when he missed that penalty, it was like the first time that the season really turned for me, or it felt like it wasn't going to just carry on, like the wild ride wasn't going to continue. And it was then just me trying to stay there. And I think I slipped out to like 9K or something and then played that wild card, which kind of brought me back up. But yeah, I think that could have been very, very different if he'd scored that penalty and gone on to get a few more returns. And actually, if you think about it, because Liverpool lost that game 1-0, didn't they? Imagine if Salah scores that penalty, Liverpool might win the league.
Yep.
Those are the moments. Forget my fantasy season. Liverpool could have been on for the quadruple if Salah had scored that penalty.
Did they lose that game or did they draw?
I think they lost 1-0 because I think that Leicester kept a clean sheet, didn't they? I'm pretty sure Leicester scored. I can't remember who it was who got the goal. I could have a look now.
Right, because I remember on a couple of episodes ago you were asking when did Liverpool last drop points, and I couldn't remember, but I think that in the league was the last game. But I thought in my head it was only a draw.
Which game week was that? It was a horrible.
Was
That was my
something?
7.5 million game week rank, wasn't it? Because Salah got 0 as captain, and they lost 1-0.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know who scored for Leicester, but game week 20. Here we go. Ademola Lookman. Yeah, it was on that break. That was a Dewsbury Hall assist.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, Schmeichel made 4 saves. Schmeichel got 3 bonus. Yeah, that's a bit of a sickener, isn't it? It was on the 28th of December. In fact, I think I was watching it on the TV.
That, you mentioned in the the Gallagher move. I mean, okay, I know it was obviously a really hard fixture, and 2 goals, presumably bonus, 13 points. I mean, isn't that just in inverted commas a lucky swing and anyone could have had it, or was actually there something massive there, like psychological or like some increase in value or something that happened?
Well, he was first bench for me, so it was City away, so I didn't expect him to get anything. But and I'd brought him in, I think in like game week 4, and I'm just looking back at his scores. He'd like, this is from game week 4, 8-2, 4-2, 2-2, and then played City away. So I put him first bench again. Even that, I mean, my bench must have been horrendous to do that. But he then got 13 against City, and then I think I played him in game week 11 against Wolves, and he got another 13-pointer against Wolves. So, like Gallagher, like again at that period of the season, he was absolutely massive for me.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe actually it was more than that. I mean, obviously the 13-pointer is the standout headline there, but actually that whole period when maybe a lot of people had ditched him, especially for the City fixture, he kept the faith and he came in. So it's a bit more that.
Yeah, and then I had him, and again, these are some of the lessons, right? Because I had him in because of those massive scores and those great memories. I had him in the team then for scores of like 2-2, 1, whatever. But then in game week 16, so like probably last season, I would have binned him off because he got scores of 5-2-1-2 after that, and I had all those scores in my team because obviously I'm thinking, right, well, Gallagher's the second coming. In game week 16, when I was probably like, oh, I'll give him one more game because it's Everton, he got 15 points.
Wow. Okay.
So, these are the moments where it's fine to have a player like Gallagher who's super low owned and have him get those low scores as long as the rest of your team is holding you up. When a player like that gets you 15 points, it's massive for your rank.
Yeah.
I mean, my game week ranking, game week 16, when Gallagher got 15 points, was 28k.
Oof, lovely.
So, those are the sorts of things. And that's again a big lesson for me next season. You've just got to be patient with these players. If you believe that they've got scores in them, you've got to be patient with them. But in another season, maybe Gallagher's fixture isn't Everton, it's City, it's I don't know, Leicester or someone, and he doesn't do anything. And suddenly I'm just sitting there with a player who's just not returning. So I don't know. There's a huge amount of luck in this game, but it's maybe I think that's why we love it, because when you have those moments and they come in, it's a good feeling.
Yep. And just on the last question I had on your game week, how close were you not to going Maddison? Because I think Kane was the striker of choice. As soon as we knew Salah was out, the money was going to Kane, but that probably left you lots of options in midfield. How close were you to not doing Maddison?
I think if I could have afforded it, I probably would have done Mount. Just because of that, everyone was talking up that Chelsea-Watford fixture, and everyone, obviously Mount hadn't played the game before, and they're like, there's going to be huge goals in that Watford fixture. I think what people didn't really focus on, though, is that if you completely take the guts out of a team and change everyone, it doesn't really matter who they're playing. They're not going to be on top. They're not going to be on top form, are they? So it was. So, yeah, I mean, because when everyone was looking at that fixture after 37, people or even before that, the people were talking about Lukaku and saying, oh, he could be a massive differential on the final day. But if the whole rest of the team is chopped and changed, they're not going to perform that well. So I just think you look at Maddison, and I think we get to this on when I'm looking at players for next season. Who did he outscore? I think he outscored. Was it Bowen that he outscored by like 1 or 2 points?
I thought Bowen was in the top 5 scorers of the season, so
maybe Bowen was over 200, but Maddison outscored somebody really surprising. Yeah, I think it was Saka. And you think Saka's been lauded as having this unbelievable season. Maddison not, but Maddison's got these massive scores in him.
Yeah.
And I think with Leicester not being in Europe next season, and again, who knows? But I think there was a time when people were talking about Brendan Rodgers for the Man United job, and I think even Brendan Rodgers might have thought he was going to get the Man United job, because when we sacked Solskjaer, Leicester suddenly fell off a cliff. But I think Leicester players are going to be good value next season.
Thing is, at one point a few weeks ago, okay, it's still in Europe, but they were not relegation threatened, but thinking about maybe a 13th, 14th, 15th finish. They were right out of it. So them going out of Europe maybe came at a good time, and they had some good fixtures. But I don't know, Rodgers is really inconsistent with them. A bit like Mount, he's had like 20 pointers, but he's also had lots of 1s and 2s. So I think those sort of players are quite tricky.
Maddison's end to the season was absolutely massive, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I like Maddison. He's a good player. I really like Barnes as well. I mean, I nearly went Barnes at the start of the season, and I was lucky that I didn't, because then when he didn't have a great start. So I thought, well, I'm not, I didn't then bring him in. But I think Barnes is going to have a good season. I think next season, if Leicester aren't in Europe and they stabilize and they bring in some good players, and they're about to use, I think they're going to lose Tielemans, aren't they? But hopefully Man United will go for Tielemans, because I think he'd be good for United. But Barnes could have a really good season next season.
Yeah.
To see what his price is, but I might look at him in game week 1.
Okay, let's move on. The usual top 10k review. I won't spend too much time on this. There's a couple of interesting things. I probably won't be able to say this very often, but everyone with more than a 20% EO and who got a double digit I own this week, which was very pleasing. Son, Kane, Kulusevski and Maddison.
Very nice.
Same for you, other than Kulu. Another week where Son outscores Kane. I mean, anyone that thought, right, this is finally the last roll of the dice, Kane's going to do it, probably feeling pretty sweet at 3-0, but then Son just goes and outdoes him again.
Yeah, they were like, oh, this is Mane versus Salah from last season, like Captain Kane.
Yeah. And then the other mad thing is just in the top right, the chip usage in the top 10k. I mean, the fact that these aren't 100% figures. So in the top 10k, 23% of people, 23 people didn't use free hit 2. 9 didn't use bench boost. It's pretty mad that there is anyone in that elite top 10k that have still got chips around. I mean, I know we were joking that there was someone with 4 chips and 3 weeks to use them, so physically couldn't do it. But
well, and that's the kind of thing, right? Because even with the free hit, there are probably people who free hit in 37 and then suddenly realise, shock horror, they're not allowed to free hit in 38.
yeah, true, maybe. Which I don't know, would we put them in a casual category? But it's pretty mad that you can overlook these sort of things.
Yeah, and I guess if they're in the top 10k, they're not casual, are they? So
True.
were there any? Have you seen much about any like complete like ghost teams in the top 10k?
Yeah. Well, I've seen something about ghost teams. I haven't got it on a slide, unfortunately, and I can't remember the rank. It wasn't as big as I thought. I don't know, something like, I want to say like 8k was maybe the highest ghost team.
Right,
But in
like a
previous,
game week one ghost team.
I think so. Yeah, because
Yeah,
what is a ghost team as well? Are they allowed to use chips? Are they, I'm not quite sure what constitutes it, but I think this was a set and forget at game week 1, and that's it. So I think in previous
I
seasons though
love the
it's been
phrase. Go on.
like a 1k or 2k, but 8k is obviously still quite high, but it's not as high as it's been in previous seasons, I think.
Yeah, I love the phraseology in FPL, like a ghost team. Whoever comes up with that, it's so good. It's so good. And then
Yeah.
set and forget, like they just roll off the tongue, don't they? As you just use set and forget. But what you normally see around this at the end of the season is somebody who says, right, if you had picked this team at the start of the season and Captain Salah and
Well,
whatever.
so I've got a couple of slides on that actually. Yeah, I don't
Okay.
know what the highest ghost team was, but I've got a couple on if you had picked this team, this is where you would get to.
Because in the past, there have been people who've said, well, if you picked this team game week 1, you'd have won it.
Yeah, yeah. And I've got a picture of that from 2 seasons ago, and it was a
Oh, wow.
4-4-2 with I mean, I was looking at it earlier and I was like, there's 4 big hitters in it. I think they had Son, what was it? Son, Kane, Bruno, and Salah. But I guess their prices were, well, maybe that was when Bruno came in. Would
No,
you
because
say 8 or something?
he came in Jan though, didn't he? So
Oh, okay. So maybe he was like 9.5 or something. Son was maybe 9. So everything comes down a bit. But
yeah.
yeah, it's about finding those next sort of big hitters that aren't quite at that 11, 12 million price, and
I
maybe
think it's
Son
probably
might still
also, I
do
mean,
it.
well, it'll be interesting to see it, but I think it'll be also that they've accidentally on purpose nailed all the enablers as well, who also
Yeah,
did really well
the
that season.
Lundstroms and the yeah.
Yeah.
But another thing I wanted to mention on that. Sorry, just one thing before we move on. No, that was it, I think. Right, yeah. Nick's celebrating for those only on audio for whatever reason. But yeah, Onion League review, basically. You have got a green arrow to top out of the 6 people in the league. Congratulations.
Yeah, because Paddy overtook me, didn't he?
Did.
Before this week, and I was looking at it, and then yeah, unlucky Paddy, you had a tough last week, but I'm just relieved that I don't have to figure out how to mail a curly whirly and actually go through that with that kind of admin. But yeah, maybe next. We were talking about this before the stream. Maybe we'll have to figure out how to get a better prize for next season. But hopefully, we'll get some more people joining this league, and we'll get a bit of a community going. I think we need to improve the tech so that we can actually stream live and actually have people coming and talking to us. That'd be nice. So that's kind of a big ambition for next season.
Agreed. And have you caught up with Tom, Martin, Wooden Spoon since the deadline?
I haven't
Personally?
actually. I was messaging Tom before the deadline and just kind of getting his thoughts on my moves. And I think he'd already made his moves at the time. But yeah, he's been a bit quiet since the end of game week 38. So maybe he didn't feel like it. I didn't actually see where he finished. Did he? Where did he finish overall?
Not sure
Did
what
you
his
see?
OR was. No.
Right. Well, I'll be able to tell you right now. And Tom, if you're listening to this, I'm going to go and look at the league. Where are we?
But yeah,
Here we
commiseration,
go.
Tom. Yeah, Wooden Spoon, as I was trying to say in the last episode, not so eloquently. Not to not too cheap in the UK at the moment with the cost of living crisis. So feel free to buy yourself one if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm not going to read out Tom's overall rank. He can post it in the comments if he'd like to, but he had a good end to the season, and in fact, let me see if he had the kind of perfect, what's it called in running, reverse splits or something.
Negative split.
Negative splits. That's it. Yeah. I mean, at one point in the season, Tom was like 1.4 million. Like game week 10, he was 1.4 million. So where he's finished,
yeah, decent.
He just this, and this is the thing in this game, right? That but game week 1, game week 1, he had a great game week 1. He got 97 points. He had the Salah captain Bruno Weiss, which I had as well. But again, I do think, and we don't talk about this, but I think where you can eventually finish is quite highly dependent on how you start.
Yeah.
If you have a good start, but yes, there we go. There's always next year. Tom will have a good season next season, I think.
Yep. And then Mark Bleakley was the name I couldn't remember last week. I could remember his team name, but he was third. Yeah, quite a way below you two in first and second, and then quite a big gap to myself. I managed to pip Tom Harris from work. Sorry, Tom. I think also did him in the head-to-head league actually at work on the last day, which is a bit of a double whammy. And then other Tom at the bottom. So more people hopefully next season. But enjoy the curly whirly, Nick.
Thank you, sir. I will. I probably won't have a curly. I don't know why I keep going on about them. But yeah, the one thing I was quite pleased about, and kind of congratulations and commiserations to Chris, your friend Chris, because he overtook me with his massive free hit, 102 points. Or I think he got very, very close. I think he was like 7 points behind or something. But yeah, I mean, I think he was 100 points back like 2 weeks before that, and he just absolutely smashed it. He got 148 points in the double game week in 36. And yeah, he got me really worried.
Yeah, that's amazing. What a 20, what was it? 30, well, it was a 30-point captain, wasn't it? Right, KDB for 36.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing what that can do, especially when we don't own him. That's true game. 60 points right there.
Yeah, exactly. That was brutal. I mean, the end of the season, certainly in our wash up, we're going to be talking about that KDB haul, I think.
Okay, 3 slides of Twitter bits that I saw this week. So the first, you sort of alluded to this topic, was someone that found what they thought was the best possible, they call it a zombie team here. But yeah, same idea as a ghost team. You would have finished 2000th in the world had you done this in game week 1, not made any transfers, no lineup changes, not played chips, and not done anything after game week 1. And he's done this manually.
This is that thing though. Look at that team. You wouldn't think that you'd be able to afford that team.
Sure.
But it's just because those players have had good seasons.
Yeah. As in, you're looking at someone like Trent, and you're seeing right now an 8.5 defender, but obviously at the start he's only 7.5. Yeah. So that team, for anyone without video, is Ramsdale in goal. In defence, Trent, Cancelo, Robertson, Laporte. So a big back 4, and then a midfield 5 with 2 big hitters in Salah and Son, and then Bowen, Maddison, Mount. Maddison's vice captain and Salah's captain, and then Tony completes a 4-5-1, and then bench to Schmeichel, Cody, Dennis, and Broja. So it's not real bench fodder. I mean, 4.5 million on the bench, but I think the key thing there that stands out for me is, and I really need to try and get on this next season, and maybe I always do and get it wrong, is those 7.5, 6.5 midfielders. There are some big scores there every season, and it's just trying to get them. I mean, yeah, you mentioned Saka, and he might actually be on the next team. But the people like that, there's quite a few options, isn't there? But in game week 1, everyone might have put their chips on who's the blimmin' West Ham midfielder whose name escapes me, but started really well, Benrahma. Maybe people thought it was him.
He was 6, wasn't he, I think?
Right, okay. But obviously moving from him to maybe a Bowen in like game week 5 or something would have even been more powerful. But I think at some point you need to settle on what you think is going to be, and I don't think I've owned Mount more than maybe 2 or 3 weeks this season. It's identifying those players and sticking with them for a while, because they're performing like a 9-10 million player.
Yeah, I think the other thing when you look at this, what makes it affordable, I mean, there's a note here saying I did this manually. So obviously this guy, this isn't an actual zombie team. This is what he's
Yeah,
put together.
yeah,
But the thing that makes it affordable, obviously, is the two very cheap forwards, isn't it, in Dennis and Broja? And I think unless, we've said this before, but unless they change the prices massively, you know, I think the only thing that slightly breaks this up, and this is the thing, we're always like, oh, we've learned these lessons, but there's always a different set of variables for the next season.
sure.
But I think the big thing that breaks it is both Haaland and Mitrovic, because I think people are going to want those two.
Yeah,
And if they want to wait and see on Haaland, they're going to have Kane. But you know, I think if it wasn't for Mitrovic, I'd probably be trying to start with maybe two 4.5s or two, you know, 4.5 and then a 5 or something like that, if there is an option around that price. But I think Mitrovic, even if he's 6.5, which is what I expect, I think that's what he was the last time Fulham came into the league. People are going to want him, aren't they, as their second forward, I think.
probably. But just on that, and I know you listened to the what was it, the preview season thing on
Planet
Planet
FPL, yeah.
FPL about it. Are you what, like 80% that you're going to be going with that? Because you know Fulham have been here before. They've been a poor team before in the Premier League. And Mitrovic has been up and not ripped up any trees either. Is that not just, you know, the classic of you shouldn't go there if they're not proven in the Premier League?
Yeah, probably. But I think that you know, I would highly recommend listening to that pod. I can't remember. I don't think it was Clash of the Correspondents. I think it was just I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was really interesting because the guy was saying, the Fulham fan was saying that it's the reason why it's going to be different next season. And again, maybe that's just because he's a Fulham fan, but it does sound very different. And there were reasons why they were kind of scuttled in those other seasons. And obviously Mitrovic, he has been here before, but he's not, you know, he's set records in the Championship and he's going to be full of confidence and he's got a manager who believes in him and they're going to build the team around him. Whereas they were kind of saying in the previous seasons, he was an option, but then for whatever reason, he fell out with the manager, or it seemed like the manager didn't fancy him, or they suddenly started playing super defensive, or they lost their key playmaker or whatever else. So again, like it'll depend on their fixtures. If their fixtures are horrendous at the start, I won't start
Sure.
with him.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're nice, then I think a lot of people will try him out at the start.
Fair enough. Okay, this one is a little bit harder to read, but another ghost team that would have done well. So this guy's saying, if you pick this team in game week 1, made 0 free transfers, note the bench order, done a bench boost in game week 9, maybe it means 29, and triple captain 26, nothing else, you would have got 1,280th overall rank, big team value growth, and that is another 4-5-1, so similarities there. Lloris in goal is interesting. Same back four, big at the back, 5 in midfield. It's Saka this time instead of, what was the difference on the last one? Mount. And then Pookie up front rather than Tony. Tony's first bench. Cody's also on the bench, interestingly, and Dennis is the same bench fodder with Backman as well.
That is one thing that I was looking at in doing looking at these prices for next season was the difference between the best, like the 4.5 keepers this season completely failed. I think the best one was
Well, Ramsdale started at 4.5.
No, I think Ramsdale was 5, wasn't he?
No, I think Leno was. I think that's the surprise that everyone came with, was they weren't sure that Ramsdale was going to start as number 1. As soon as he did, that's when I jumped on him.
Ramsdale was 4.5.
I think so. He only ended at only 5.2ish, so it's not much growth from 5 if he started there.
Really? That well, maybe that, yeah. If that's true, that's amazing. But I thought he was 5. Oh no, you're right. Wow, his price went up massively, didn't it? So quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he was the one then, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But again, he had a very bad end to the season, didn't he?
He did. Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, he reached 5.1, which was his final price. He reached that in, what is this? Like game week 15 or something. It's difficult to see without scrolling across, but yeah, he was the one. But I thought the other one was the Brighton keeper,
Sanchez. Yeah,
Sanchez. But
he was popular at the start, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he got like 120 something points. And I was looking at it that I think Alisson got like 50 points more than him. And you think for 1.5 million being worth 50 points, and even when you go into the midfield, 1.5 million doesn't get you 50 points. I think maybe it got you 60 points in the midfield, but you think it would be bigger than that.
Okay.
I was trying to look at the combination of who it was, but like the biggest gap, I think it was like Bowen up to somebody. But we just never look at those pricey keepers, do we, at the start of the season?
True.
And yet,
Yeah.
if you're getting that many points for just 1.5 million, but it's just the hope is that those spending that money on midfielders and forwards is going to get you more, isn't it? So
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah. Sorry, this first team had Ramsdale. Yeah, it said 4.5. I should have noticed that. So
right.
that was the guess where that's where some of the saving on this happened.
Yes, indeed.
But again, another
I
4
think at the
5
start of
one.
the season, you still didn't really know whether Leno was going to get his place back, did you?
Yeah, sure, yeah, exactly. So that was definitely a hindsight one. But
Yeah.
you thinking then? Sorry, so your point on the extra 1.5 is that we should be looking again at 4.5s next season in goal, or
No, I mean, because this is the thing. I think it's so difficult to say with any kind of conviction, right? This is the way to play it, because there's going to be a whole other set of players, even though it's the same players. They're all going to have different price points potentially, and you're trying to. You can't rule out a 4.5 key, because there might be, it might be that if Rayo's 4.5 and he's not going to be injured, because he actually got nearly 100 points and yet he missed 15 games or something, and
yeah,
it could be that Brentford have a really bad, that second season could be really tough for them. But if not, and if their defense is good, he might be a really good option if he's 4.5. But you look at people like Jose Sa. I think he was 5 million. He did really, really well for me when I brought him in. Again, a lot of people have said that their XG and XGC and everything else actually was, they should have conceded more than they did. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's just when the prices come out and Edison's 6 and Alisson's 6, I mean, you're still going to look at it and think, actually, great, it looks nice, but I need that 1.5 to just, stretch that extra midfielder or that extra forward or whatever, to get Mitrovic instead of a 5 million forward. And
yeah,
it just seems like a massive thing. But the likes of Edison and Alisson, they're always getting like 170 points, aren't they? Which is massive.
yeah. I think if City's fixtures are good, I think it is going to be really difficult to do something like that, because you're going to want that money to get Haaland and a big midfielder. You're going to want two options to captain, aren't you? And that therefore I think means very unlikely to go with a premium keeper. Although all of this is saying that you should do, and you should maybe even double up on. I think I saw a stat that in the last 3 seasons, the team that has won the Premier League has always had the lowest XGC. And so I guess you think who's going to win the league, and you get two of those defenders at the start and just let them ride out. But it's so easy to say, isn't it? So difficult to do when you, like you say, strapped for cash at the start.
That's the other thing about these Goes teams and about prices and everything else, is the trick is actually, you are allowed to make transfers. So the trick is you have Ramsdale when he's 4.5, and then, when he goes off the boil, you've maybe seen something that, obviously when the injury to Tierney happened, their defense got a lot worse after that. And, they never really had a consistent right back, but you've seen something, and so you swap to Schmeichel towards the end, or you swap to Foster or whatever. But you can make these transfers, so that these Ghost teams are really interesting. But the idea is you want to be kind of hopping to the next big thing, don't you?
I think it's an overall structure thing. I think the 4-5-1 is key, but you have had success with that at the start, so that's not massively surprising. But I do think it's interesting that there's no 6 or below mil midfielders and no one between 7 and 10. I don't know, maybe that's just the likes of Sterling and Mahrez didn't go off this season, but maybe those midfielders are quite hard to pin down, and if they're rotation rich, they're not just just not an option. So you want kind of Champions League to mid-table, talismanic 6 to 8 mil midfielders. That's what seems to be in all these teams, and there's 3 of them. And just got identifying them is obviously tricky, but then maybe keeping
It's
them for
tricky
a good 10
because
weeks.
as we'll see on the pricing, I mean, those players who are those 6 to 8 million midfielders are going to be more like 8 to 10 million midfielders
sure.
next season. That's the issue, right?
Sure. Okay, the last slide for me, if you can call it that, before you can get down and dirty with some stats, was on the left. Just a reminder of the schedule for next season. 6th of August is when the Premier League starts. So the game, I think they're talking about maybe the end of June opening. So we've already got about 4 weeks of that
Do you know
until
what's
we.
brutal about this, Shlee, is that I'm going on holiday on the 3rd of August. So,
Well, yeah, as someone who's on holiday currently and had to have gone through a couple of deadlines, as sad as it is, and I haven't talked to Kat about this, but yeah, it's not a good combo, mate.
no,
Holiday
and
plus FPL deadlines, but yeah, that's the biggest
that's
one.
that's our big holiday of the year. That's our big holiday of the year that we're kind of putting all our chips on.
Right.
And so I'm really looking forward to it. But I think I'm just going to have to make sure that because you don't really get that much. By that point, all the friendlies have been played really. So a lot of the injury news, you'll have that. So it shouldn't be too bad. I should be able to kind of get my team pretty locked in before that. But
But yeah, you might need
yeah, I
to
mean, there'll
find
be more deadlines while I'm away as well. So.
yeah, okay. Need to find a good internet cafe or a really comfortable. What was it? Mark off again. Black box. Name dropping him a lot tonight. Did you see that post he said of the toilet where he was hanging out, where some of the goals are flying in? He was like, "This is lovely and comfortable with a heated seat, and I can spend all my time in here."
I did see that. He's hilarious, Mark, isn't he? He
Yeah.
cracks me up, and it's funny because he gets Luke and Az cracking up as well. But he's just a funny bloke. I mean, the fact that he took a picture, the funniest thing about that was I think I posted on that to say I hope your wife doesn't follow you on Twitter,
What of
because he's
the
there.
him with the Forest? Was it the keep? Oh, the midfielder.
No.
Oh, the toilet.
When he was in
Sorry,
the
right.
toilet, because like
Yeah.
he's in a restaurant with his wife. I think it was like a date night or something. Or whether if they were there with friends, it's it's marginally worse, arguably. He's hanging out in the toilet and he's tweeting from the toilet. And his wife, if she sees like a notification come up on her phone and it's Mark and he's in the toilet in a restaurant, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous.
That's brilliant.
Kate would murder me. She would murder me if I was tweeting from the toilet.
I don't think Kat would be surprised if I did that activity. That kind of behaviour would probably not blink an eye.
The funniest thing was him complaining about the fact that he'd been on hold to the Nottingham Forest kind of ticket office all morning or whatever, and he was using his Twitter account in the way that I used to use my Twitter account to complain that I had some mold in my Weetabix or something, and he's using it. He's got like 46,000 followers, and he's using it still to complain about stuff. It's absolutely brilliant.
Did he get what he wanted there? I did see that.
I don't know. He didn't post an update. I mean, I guess you don't often see an update in those complaining posts. And you're like,
Yeah,
BT,
okay.
my internet's slow. It's hilarious.
And then the World Cup obviously is going to make things quite different next season. I mean, and you probably heard Andy was predicting that maybe they're going to give us a wild card at the end of the World Cup finishing, because there's 8 days between 18th of December World Cup ending to Boxing Day when the Premier League resumes. So maybe
Do you know
pretty
what I think the best thing they could do, because the thing Andy was saying on that was that you're just not going to know who's going to start on the 26th. It'd be interesting to see what the schedule is, because obviously normally that time of year is absolutely packed, isn't it, with games? It's like 26th, 28th, 31st or whatever, or the first. But if they're not packed, what they should just do is give us an extra free hit for that game week that starts on December the 26th, because then we can, we should know who's fit and who's back and who's kind of come back early and everything else. So we should be able to pick a decent team for that game week. But I think giving us a wild card it's probably a bit too much. Whereas a free hit, I think would work there. And they've obviously, they've already set precedent this season by giving an extra free hit. So
But
that would
people
probably
wouldn't use it
work.
for that, would they?
You say as in people would then just hold it. Yeah,
Yeah, like they
maybe.
have this season. Yeah.
Whereas the wild card, when we got the wild card with COVID, I think we had to use it, didn't we, before that? Or did we? No, maybe we didn't, because I think maybe I saved mine or you saved yours. But I think they did that last time. I think they gave us a wild card to use, thinking we could use it at the restart, but some people didn't.
This was 2 seasons ago.
Yeah. Do you
Can't
remember?
remember. No.
Yeah, I think they gave us a wild card for the restart, and I think because some people had been making a transfer a
Ah,
week.
yeah. Sorry, I do remember now. Yeah, yes, yeah, that's it. You could make a transfer a week still, because then there was, like 45 game weeks, wasn't there, in that season? It all
Yeah,
just shifted over.
and I think some people, maybe we're remembering this wrong, because I think there was a lot of people who were annoyed because they were saying, well, if I'd known the game was going to restart, I would have made those transfers each week. but I think maybe because I had been a nerd and made a transfer each week, I just don't think I needed to wildcard. But maybe
Same.
we're
But in height,
misremembering this.
but no, I think you're right. Everything up to then, I think you're right. And then I think the thing that I did was think again, maybe overthinking. I was clever and I was doing those transfers each week, and therefore I didn't need to wildcard. But I think most people had more success in wildcarding, even if they had been clever like us and done those transfers. But I can't remember why.
No, and
I
I
think
can't
maybe
remember what I did either.
the returning teams were so things were so different compared to pre-COVID that
Yeah.
Leeds had a massive rest, and so they were back on it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff, isn't it? That saved them. That did, because they were back able to play like at super high tempo again, weren't they?
Yeah, that's a long time
Yeah.
ago. Blimey.
Interesting.
And then on the right is interesting. We touched on it earlier. I think what is the new top 10k? This guy on Twitter, 11 Niffy, top 10k reality check. So of the Elite 64, that's the FPL Generals League. Really good managers. Only 20% of those finished in the top 10k this season.
Mm.
Of the Elite 1000, which I think is who runs that one? I think it's that guy Andrew. Can't remember his name, but he comes out with some crazy stats on Twitter. Again, 20% of that group is in the top 10k. All these numbers are suggesting between sort of 5 and 20% are in the top 10k. So don't want your head being too big to get out the door tonight, but it shows that is very difficult to achieve now. And a lot of talk is that top 50k is now the new sort of top 10k, isn't it? Given the extra number of managers now playing the game.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty pleased because I was kind of following as a season, and yeah, I think I managed to outlast him in the end, so that was quite
Okay,
nice.
nice.
But I think Fabio finished in the top 1K again, I think, didn't
Oh
he?
yeah, 600 or something. Yeah, and there's been a lot of. I think there's been a few accounts opening up on Twitter just following him and celebrating his kind of history, or maybe they've been around a while, but they've obviously perked up recently because he just had a crazy season.
He's unbelievable, and I think Luke posted something on Twitter about luck and about he said his tweet was something like, if you put a load of bots, if you made 9 million bots all
Yeah,
play FPL, there'd still be, just because of random random selection, that there'd still be people in, or bots in that thing, that would have more top 1K finishes than the other bots, just because of chance. But he was kind of saying that there is a huge amount of luck involved. But people like Fabio, I mean, he's just amazing at picking players, isn't he? And he must be amazing at picking players for runs of fixtures. And
yeah. Well, I
yeah,
really think and we'll cover his season a little bit in one of the sort of things I'm planning season review stuff, but he I don't want to say he had to like reinvent himself in the middle of this season because I didn't intimately follow his season, but he just got Pope in at that crazy time when he got like 19 points in the double, and that was off the
yeah,
back of, I think, like he took a really unusual like -12 or something. He's a very, again, risk averse manager, and he's doing -4 hits max up to that point, and I think he just thought, sod this, it's not working. I'm just going to do something a bit not reckless, but I believe in these good players, and there's 5 of them I want to bring in over the next 2 weeks. Bang, and then on the back of the double game weeks, it just came in. Maybe there's a bit of luck.
yeah,
He probably went Fernandez over Ronaldo, and Pope over whoever was a flavour of the month then. Maybe Ramsdale, but Pope in the short term this season has been really, really good. So he obviously just got that eye for it, but just went super aggressive and thinking, right, no, I'm going to believe myself here and do it all at once.
It'd be really interesting to see, though. It'd be really interesting to go like week by week on this season. I'm not sure we could do that on a pod, but I might have a look at it, because it'd be interesting to see whether he then got Pope for, or still had Pope for the rest of their double game weeks, because
Mm.
I think he only went big in one double game week, didn't he? And
Yeah, I think there
he
was like
happened to
maybe
bring him in just before that.
like a 5 week period. It was good, but then maybe his backup keeper was then going to take over or something. I think it was a very short term thing.
Yeah,
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 what I'm planning is not going to be a deep dive into it. It was more around his chips and more around his OR um, sort of pattern over the season, and then maybe a little look into what happened at certain times compared to other elite managers. That was where I was going to go. But yeah, for sure he's in the
yeah,
list because he's just insane.
yeah. And is he number one overall all time?
Yeah, in the I'm pretty sure in the fantasy football members Hall of Fame table he's first, and in the What's the other one that's run by someone? I screen grabbed it the other day. There's another independent one that's not based on just Scout, and yeah, he's number 1 in that as well. So
And
yeah,
where's Mark now? Because I remember Mark was like top 10 at some point, wasn't he?
not sure.
Yeah, interesting.
Oh yeah, text. Yeah, and just for context, what am I? 6,000th, and you're, did I say 12 or something for you?
You did,
Yeah.
yeah. And is that in the, because I have been a member of Scout before. I'm not a member
Oh
of
right,
an
no,
owner,
that was
but
in the independent one,
that
so
was
that's
in the
got
other
more
one.
players in. So I think that's probably more realistic because yeah, Scout's obviously only a snippet of the community, albeit quite a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting. Yeah, my history's pretty shocking, really. But
but it will be weighted more on this season. It did include. Oh no, it didn't include this season yet. They hadn't updated it. So
sweet.
oh, hang on, what was that? Scout had. Maybe I've got that the wrong way around. Anyway, we'll see. But obviously it'll heavily weight your one.
Yeah, nice. So this is just a couple of spreadsheets that I very, very quickly threw together, and then Shlee very kindly applied the what do you call it, the night mode on it for
Well, the branding, but I didn't do full branding. It's it's kind of dark mode though, isn't it?
yeah. So on the left hand side, and this is just me starting prices, and the starting price in 21-22, the final price in 21-22, the points that they achieved this season, and then my predicted starting price for them for next year. And I may even have been quite conservative on the predictions on the starting price, but I have seen, I have noticed that generally they'll look at kind of where, especially if a player's been in the league for a number of seasons, they will look at kind of where their final price ended up and then set the new price based kind of loosely on that. But they could, if they want to, nerf the defenders even more, they could, Trent, instead of coming in, because Trent's starting price in 2021-22 was 7.5 and his final price was 8.4, and I think he had hit 8.5 at one point. But my prediction here is the starting price of 8.5. Now they could decide, right, we're going to change the game actually, and we're going to go Trent at 9 or 9.5 or 10. But again, I just think they don't want to break what isn't, to fix what isn't broken, I think. And so,
Yeah.
because I think if they went too big, or even though we're calling for it, it would be weird to kind of, the game relaunch and we start looking at these squads and think, well, actually, this does feel like a different game because they've changed these prices so much that we're not used to kind of looking at the way that this is structured. But yeah, so I've picked out some players who I think might be good players to start with next season. So just to read this out for people on audio. So I've got Raya in goal, Dubravka. And again, this isn't on the team on the left isn't, it's not a team that you would start with because there's nobody really that you would bench here. But Raya, Dubravka, then Trent, Robertson, Cancelo, James, and then Trippier I've gone for just because he started really well at Newcastle. He actually ended up getting 28 points, I think, in like 4 games. So he could be a fantastic option for next season, especially if he stays around the 5 million price point, which I'd expect him to, because obviously he was injured. And so he hasn't really had the chance to prove that he should be much more than that. I expect Newcastle to improve massively. I think they'll buy over the summer, but Trippier is the kind of player who I don't think they'll be looking to replace that position just because he's an England international. He takes free kicks and set pieces, etc. So I think he'll still be in the team. He could be a great option. Then in the midfield, there's Salah, Son, Bowen, Gomeres, and Kulusevski. And, Kulusevski could have been Luis Diaz, but I think, I'd probably prefer Kulusevski given how nailed he is in that Tottenham side. Obviously, he's competing with Mora, but Diaz has got, Jota and Mane and Salah and Firmino all going for the same spots. And then up front, Haaland, Mitrovic, and Kane. So there's obviously no data on Haaland or Mitrovic. I could have, if I'd had time, I should have gone back and kind of looked to see how Fulham performed the last time they were in the Premier League. But the really interesting thing about this was that with the final prices and the predicted starting prices, so I've got Haaland coming in at 12, just because Ronaldo and Salah both started this season at 12.5. I just don't see them bringing a brand new player into the league at higher than 12. I mean, I know Ronaldo is 12.5, but he has been in the Premier League before and he is obviously thought of as one of the best players ever. So I guess Haaland could be 12.5, it could be 13. I think they're going to want people to be excited about him and want to have him. So I just don't think they're going to put him too high. And Mitrovic, I've just put him in as 6.5 just because I think that's what his price was last time. So maybe he might be 7 or 7.5 if they want to nerf him a bit. But the total price for that team, and actually I haven't actually totted it up here, but it's pretty. On the right hand side, you can see it where I've actually put in a 4 million sub goalkeeper, 4 million defenders, and a 4.5 million forward. And with the predicted starting prices there, you're at 109 million. So that's with the predicted starting prices of where they kind of ended up at the end of the season and what I think they're going to be next season. But then when I totted up the starting prices, Salah at 12.5 rather than 13, and Son at 10 rather than 11.5, and Bowen at 6.5 rather than 8, I got bang on 100 million. So it kind of ties in with what we've been saying, obviously, with the ghost teams and the zombie teams, in that it's all hindsight and you look back and those teams look much more affordable. But some things can have to give, because there's a massive difference. You can't have, even with absolutely no bench, so 4 million defenders and a 4.5 million striker, you can't have this team now, and I don't think you'll be able to have this team next season. So there is going to be a place where you're going to have to say, right, I'm going to have to compromise on this.
Yeah. Okay. So just to confirm, on the left then, this is a bit of a sort of workings table of you've picked 15 players of interest from this season and who potentially are going to be in next season, looked at what they started with and what the final price will be, and then you've cherry picked that and put it into the right hand table and thought, I definitely want Cancelo, but maybe not James, and then you've put in a crazy cheap bench just to see in theory what might be possible, and you've proven that no way you can have it.
Exactly, just to see if it's possible. But if you think about it, if my predicted starting prices are anywhere near correct, if that team on the right costs you 109 million, there are some massive haircuts you need to take there to make it work.
Yeah.
Right? Like, as in, let's say you're downgraded, like you probably need to go without one of Haaland, Salah, or Son. Like
you can't. You've got three big hitters there basically, which just on the face of it, you can't do, or you just cannot have that power back three.
No, and that's the other. But that's the interesting thing, and it's even on the free hit. You look at the end of this season, you can't have the power back three. But let's say you downgrade Cancelo down to a 5 million. You've only taken 2.5 out there, whereas if you downgrade Haaland down to a Mitrovic, if you haven't got him, you've saved 5.5 there, right? So there are much bigger savings you can make elsewhere in the team than there are in your defense. But yeah, I mean, if Reece James, what do you think Reece James' starting price is going to be? Because he, as we were saying, he's been amazingly inconsistent, hasn't he?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that depends on the sort of three scenarios. Do they almost do nothing with the pricing and keep defenders too cheap in inverted commas? Do they go crazy and do Trent 9.5, 10 million, or do they do a small hike? And I think they probably would do the small hike. So I think what you've got there is probably about right. 7, 5.5 is crazy cheap this season. I can't really remember what he was at the start of this season. Was he a known explosive wing back, or was he quite unproven? But 5.5 now obviously seems crazy cheap.
Well, he played. It was him and Chilwell, wasn't it? But I think Chilwell was 6 and James was 5.5. But James had played the Champions League final, so he was, he was an elite. He's an elite right back. So
yeah, okay. So 5.5 does seem very cheap, doesn't it? But it's you can't have all those. Well, although having said what we've said in this episode, that having a big 3 or 4 at the back is the way to go. 4-5-1. You either can't do that, or you do that, but with maybe Matip, John Stones, and I don't know, Chelsea's new centre back or something, or Chilwell.
But it also seems. But the other way to do it, right, is and it seems mad to say it because it's Salah, and he's hopefully had a decent holiday and he's coming back fit and firing. But you could go Salah down to like Reece James and then just have a 4.5 mid instead of Salah, and you can then you're getting very close to being able to afford it, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, looking at that team on the right, put another way, you've got 3 big hitters. You can't have them all. You would not have the one that has the worst fixtures at the start, or shows the worst preseason form, in my opinion. And if they've all got amazing
you'd
fixtures,
have 4, and you'd have 4 at the back at least.
No, not necessarily. I think midfield five is more important than a big four at the back or four defenders. I think I think five in midfield is key, but I think 3-5-2 and 4-5-1 are kind of interchangeable
Okay.
in my opinion. Um,
Interesting, because I feel like, I mean, again, it will depend maybe on Mitrovic's fixtures, but I think I'm probably going to be trying for 5-4-1 again with Haaland up front. And
okay,
again, like if Spurs have unbelievable opening fixtures, you're probably going to want Kane, aren't you, for those first fixtures? But
only after you've got Son, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely have
Okay.
Son ahead of Kane. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, the fact that Son tied with Salah for the Golden Boot, and only because Salah came on and kind of scored in the last. I know Salah tailed off massively, but Salah was on pens. Son didn't take a single pen, and he tied with Salah. It's unbelievable,
Sure. Yeah. But Salah
unbelievable.
was absolutely electric for about 2/3 of the season. Can't forget that. And yeah, tailed off, but he was just insane for that first part, which obviously shows how ridiculous Son was as well. But obviously I
Yeah,
think we've painted him a bit of a bad light, but he was amazing for much of the season, Salah.
when you look back at Salah's scores, he I'm gonna have to go back to 36 when I last had him on my team, but he in the first 10 game weeks he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 double digit hauls
Yeah,
in the first 10 game weeks, and
crazy.
and that includes a 24 pointer against Man United in game week 9.
Yeah.
Like I remember watching that Man United game. I think it was, and even against City, like the goal he scored against City in game week 7. You know, when he kind of turned them inside out, and then
Hmm.
that like right-footed finish across Edison. I mean, he was just playing. He was out of this world at that point. And then I was thinking, oh well, he tailed off massively. But then even in the rest of the season, he had 1, 2, 3. He had another 4 double-digit hauls in the rest of the season. So he had 6 in the first 10 game weeks, and then only 4 in the rest of the season. But even the fact that he had 4 after that, including an 18 and a 19, he's still he's an unbelievable player, isn't he?
Yep.
But yeah, the idea of going without him is at the start of next season is almost unthinkable at this point. But it depends what they do on the prices, right? Because it might be the way to, if Salah comes in at 14 million, then it's going to make people really think about it, isn't it?
Yep. Yep. Or if Diaz and Mane are, I don't know, 8 and 10 mil, and Salah is almost whatever, anywhere between 12 and 14, that might also swing it.
Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it? Because I don't know how well paid they are at FPL Towers, but that would be an amazingly fun job, picking the
Yeah.
prices for the teams and just piecing it all together. Because you say like Mane, that would be really cool if they dropped Mane down to 10 million, because it would make him a really good option. But he's still got 183 points this season,
Sure.
so he'd still be massively undervalued at 10 million. So it's just the fact that Salah's there, isn't it? And if you look back at Mane's points, 18-19 he got 231, 19-20 he got 221. So he has massively tailed off in the last 2 seasons, but yeah, he's an elite FPL asset, isn't he? It's just always in the shadow of Salah,
Yeah.
but yeah, but he's probably feeling pretty good because he won AFCON and scored the winning penalty, I think, in AFCON, and then scored the winning penalty to put Egypt out of the World Cup and go to the World Cup. And then when Salah's having a rest, Salah's definitely going to be a player that we're going to want on Boxing Day, isn't he? So
That's true. Yep.
yeah, poor Salah. But yeah,
No, interesting.
where are
That's very
you
interesting.
where are you watching the Champions League final?
We're not 100% when we're travelling back from where we are here in Yorkshire at the minute. So I would love to say if we're travelling on Friday and I had more time technically on Saturday, I would actually watch it. I mean, it would just be at home, but I've got so much stuff I need to do when we get back after 2 weeks away that I'm partly thinking I might only need to listen to it and just flick it on when I can, which is pretty sad. But life's pretty busy at the moment.
Yeah, fair enough. I know that you'll be super busy, and this is probably a ridiculous aspect. If you do fancy driving up to getting the train up to come and watch it at my house, Shlee, we've got a bed for you. There's a couple of people coming over to watch it. People from school, friends from school. So,
How many people are in this bed already then?
well, we're getting all of our kind of blow up mattresses out and camp
Oh,
beds and
nice.
stuff. So,
Oh, Oh, it does sound great
Yeah,
fun. Well, we did mention, the fact that it's been must add really nice actually talking to you tonight after the last two attempts. We've or maybe one attempt, actually failed to do so. So thank goodness the dreaded T technology word has worked tonight. But yeah, we have mentioned it would be quite good to actually meet up in person, just have I guess we big it up to the girls as a work event, but just be in a pub and actually to have a couple of beers and plan some podcast stuff would be quite nice, wouldn't it?
that would be really nice. It'd be really nice as well because when I think a lot of the, I don't think it was from the start, but certainly a lot of listening to Planet FPL is where they've been on the phone with each other. But it's always nice when they get in the same room and do a pod. That'd be fun sometime
Yeah,
to get together and do one.
yeah, that'd be good. Nice.
Yes, indeed, and we wouldn't have to worry about the connection issues too much.
Yeah. Okay, we're at the end of what's been a kind of bizarre episode because we doing the timestamps of this is going to be tricky because we spent a lot of time on the slide to do with my game week last week, but we spent about 1% of that time actually discussing that, which is fine. But we've gone off on quite a few tangents, so I have to apologise again for anyone that's made it all the way through and stuck with us. But I hope you found it interesting. It's been varied topics, let's say.
Yeah, no, I've really enjoyed it, and yeah, hopefully people are finding themselves in a blackout of FPL content, and they'll find this and think it's going to be something they can tune into next season when we get going again in earnest. But I think we will try and do a few things that we just think are interesting over the next few weeks. Might not do one every single week, because even doing one a week, it's funny, isn't it? Because when you look at other content creators, you think, oh, how are they struggling to do this? It's only one a week, but when you're busy and you've got kids and you're working and stuff, it's difficult to, at the end of a tiring day, think, right, I need to get on and do a 90-minute pod. But chatting to you usually is always a pleasure, so I'll always make time for it.
Same to you, but yeah, agreed. It's one of those that takes a bit more time, and when life is very busy, and yeah, sounds like we've both had kids to deal with tonight, tricky bedtimes. It's hard to fit it in. But yeah, we are near the end. I just want to say thanks to everyone who supported us this season. As we're wrapping up the season, kind of then moving into review content. This might be understandably the last one people listen to for a bit, and that's fine. Have a rest over the season, but we're going to bring some other material to you as we've said. But being the first season we've done this, every like, subscribe, and comment on the channel's massively helped us. So thanks to everyone that supported so far, and hopefully we'll have more support coming soon.
Indeed, yeah. Thank you very much, and yeah, I'm really excited. It'd be nice to do a full season and to do a pre-season, and to think up some useful stuff. People picking their teams for the new game week 1.
Indeed. Anything else to add, Nick, before we go?
No, I don't think so. But yeah, good to chat, and we will chat soon.
Nice. Thanks very much, everybody. See you on the next one. Bye.